Hello, everyone. So, one thing that I haven't talked about on this channel before is that I was homeschooled growing up. And I want to talk about what that meant for my education, specifically when it comes to science and evolution, because that made a difference in how I learned about evolution. And I want to talk about it. So, growing up, I had a variety of science curriculum. The first science book I remember reading on my own was clearly written by a young Earth creationist, looking back, but I was encouraged to think about some of what that person said skeptically by my mom. She told me that she didn't necessarily believe everything that was in that book. And so I sort of was exposed to young Earth creationist theory, and yet at the same time, I was exposed to ideas that might not actually be the correct way to look at things. And so I really didn't know necessarily what to think about the creationist aspect of it. I do remember believing that the earth was old just based on other things that I had heard. And so I was probably an old earth creationist for much of my time growing up. Now, when I was in high school, what we did for high school was a correspondence program called the American School of Correspondence. And at the time, that was all done through snail mail. And so I would receive books and um, tests that I had to take from that school. I would take the test, mail them to the school, and then receive my grades back from the school. And that was how I got a diploma for high school. But one of the units that I had to take was biology. And the biology setup was a little bit weird because basically the way they handled it was that there was a biology book, the biology textbook that I used, that had bits about evolution in there, but basically the study guide that came along with that book would say in these, big warning statements that I remember, you don't have to read this particular section of this particular book because it talks about things that are about evolution, and therefore you don't have to read that if you don't want to. And so it was very clear that I didn't have to be exposed to the evolution side of things if I didn't want to be. And sometimes I read the evolution bits and sometimes I didn't when it came to the little bits that were within chapters. But then there was this whole unit that I could either take a unit on evolution or I could take a unit on ecology. And so what I did was I read the whole evolution unit and tried to take the test, but I wasn't sure. I wasn't convinced that evolution was true by the evolution unit. I sort of saw it as an explanation for things, but I wasn't sure if it was true. And so what I did was after having read the whole evolution unit, I couldn't take the test and, answer in good conscience, oh, this is an example of this is an example of that, because I didn't know that it was true. And so what I did was then I read the ecology unit and took the test for that instead. And so, in a way, I think it was actually a good thing that I ended up doing both units because I got the benefit of both when it came to the reading of it. But I wasn't convinced by my high school biology textbook that evolution was true. So, the way I really came to learn about evolution in a way that convinced me that it was true was at BYU, actually. When I took a BYU biology class, they went into DNA evidence. And I don't know why my high school book didn't go into DNA evidence. Perhaps the DNA evidence wasn't as clear at the time I went to high school as it was by the time I went to college. But in college at BYU, I learned about the evidence in our genome for us being evolved from other apes. And what I really found compelling was the existence of retroviruses in our genome, and the fact that because we have them in the same places as the other apes, as chimpanzees and so forth, it's pretty clear that we are related to them. And that was compelling to me because I thought to myself, well, if we are not evolved, then it seems as if God has gone to a lot of trouble to make it look like we are for no reason. And I didn't see God as being deceptive. And so if I had to choose between a deceptive God and us being evolved from other ape-like creatures, well, then I obviously would go with evolution. And so at that point, I believed in evolution. At that point, I became a theistic or deistic evolutionist, whatever you want to call that. And so I didn't know how it all worked. Obviously, I couldn't make sense of how evolution worked in the context of believing in a literal Garden of Eden, which is what I was encouraged to do in my religion and institute classes. But I did believe in evolution from that point onward. And so, in a way, I'm really grateful to BYU for having taught me evolution, despite all the other stuff that I was also taught there that I no longer agree with. And I really think, like I said in one of my other videos about BYU, that there's a huge compartmentalization of knowledge going on at BYU, where if everybody knew what was being taught in every department, there would be a greater amount of cognitive dissonance going on among the students. But what happens is the religion professors teach religion and the biology professors teach biology, and they don't realize that they're in conflict to the extent they are, I don't think. And also, I'm grateful to my parents for not being super anti-evolution to the extent that a lot of religious parents are, I think. My mom was very much, well, this is how people see it, and so it's good to learn about this. And science is not going to make you turn away from religion if religion is true. And so she was very much just kind of take things as they are. If evolution is true, great. If it's not, that's fine too. But we'll just kind of accept what is. And I'm very grateful to my parents for being that way, because even though I didn't grow up knowing a lot about evolution, I definitely had the kind of mindset where I was able to accept it when I did hear the kind of evidence that was best for me in terms of convincing me that evolution was true. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it and consider subscribing. And leave a comment below on what your thoughts were on evolution growing up and if they have changed now. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.